The history of Esperanto, commonly told, is a web of lies and anti-Esperanto propaganda. In this document, we will uncover the true history of Esperanto. Despite popular belief, Esperanto is not a constructed language. It's a natural Indo-European language. Now let's begin.
1000 BC.
We find ourselves in what we today would call the Italian peninsula. There we find the ancestor and Italic language of what we today would call Esperanto. That is the branch of the Indo-European language family Latin also belonged to. This explains the resemblance to the Roman languages, so much so that at this stage Esperanto and Latin can safely be called two variations of the same language. Don't be fooled though, at this time it was actually the Sperantai, the ancestors of the Esperanto linguistic community that ruled the Italian peninsula. This is why Esperanto seems like a Roman language, vocabulary-wise. Latin borrowed from it, not vice versa. Though around the 8th century we see the Etruscans managed to usurp this position from the Sperantai. This resulted in both Latin and Proto-Esperanto borrowing a lot of words from Etruscan. Here the history actually appears to be similar again to the story of Italy we know. The Romans managed to expand their influence, and at some point the Sperantai fall under Roman rule, which resulted in these fleeing to Iberia and Germania. Now Iberia is an interesting story. There the Sperantai developed into the Hisparanto. Does anything seem familiar about that name? That's right. Hispania comes from that very name. This also explains the similarities between the names Espanol and Esperanto. This is why Spanish, unlike certain other Roman languages, doesn't start a lot of words with S. In Italian, for example, the language is called Spagnolo. This is also noticeable in a very common word in both languages, stare and estar. As you can see, the beginning and ending is different. But with our knowledge that Spanish words rarely begin with S, we can remove the E from estar. Now we got stare and star. Italian words rarely end in consonants, hence the infinitives also don't end in consonants. This is why we can remove that E as well. Now both would be star, all thanks to the Hisparanto tribe. Staying in Hispania, things actually turned out good for the tribe. The region was ruled by Carthage. When the Punic Wars happened, the Hisparanto always picked the Roman side. This resulted in them enjoying a high rank and standing in this province, and the Romans naming the region after them. The Hisparanto people also gradually became more Roman, adopting more Greek and Latin words, and furthermore forgetting Celtic words and words of languages of the Iberian language family, a pre-Indo-European language family of which today only the Basques survive. And it is unclear whether Basque even belongs to this family or is a separate pre-Indo-European language. Some of these did survive though, and the Hisparanto language intermingled so much with Latin that it became Iberian Vulgar. Yes, the two languages were still close enough to become a single language, and just mere variation of Latin. This is not the case with our friends that migrated to Germania. They have in the meantime adopted many Germanic words and even a few Celtic ones. Most importantly, it later adopted a proto-form of the feminine suffix in, found in some modern Western Germanic languages. We will come back to this later. In the meantime, this Esperanto tribe actually gets back into contact with the Roman Empire, when a little-known fella known as Julius Caesar conquered Gaul up to the Rhine, and with that also parts of Germania. Of course, Greek and Latin words entered the language, especially words from the Latin spoken in Italy and Gaul. In 451, a very shaping event happened. The Huns invaded Gaul. They also invaded Germania Superior. This resulted in many Germanic tribes fleeing into the Western Roman Empire, which overwhelmed the ancestors of the modern Esperanto people. So they did something very weird. They migrated to the east, towards the Huns. Attila actually welcomed them and granted them land in modern-day Poland, to be specific around the area of Białystok. Does this name seem familiar? Well, someone important will be born there later. The Slavic migration to the area had already begun. Our last important language family shaping Esperanto has entered the picture, though Hebrew also played a role, which we will also talk about later. History again just takes its course, but something interesting happened this entire time long. It turns out it pidginized, which resulted in the fairly simple Esperanto we know today. History develops normally from this point. And no, I do not believe in the Licina Empire. Now that is just absurd. Of course, Poland Christianized in 966. Ostsiedlung happened. That is during the early and high Middle Ages, Germans migrating east into modern-day East Germany and beyond. The Baltic Crusades and Hanseatic League would be especially important. Due to this, the Esperanto, or should I say Esperantoi, got more German loanwords and updated some old ones. Not consciously, but for example, in now became the feminine suffix rather than the older Germanic form. Then of course we had Jewish people later coming to the region due to raging anti-Semitism in the Holy Roman Empire. Especially Białystok had a flourishing Jewish community. Though that one mostly spoke Yiddish, it did use Hebrew as a liturgical language. History continues either way, and the last important geopolitical event is the following. After the Napoleonic Wars, Russia got granted most of Poland. This was known as Congress Poland, though it wasn't the official name. After a revolution, its autonomy was abolished. What I'm trying to say is, it's Russian. On the 15th of December, 1859, the man of the hour is born in Białystok. Ludwig Laser Zamenhof, a Jew who grew up around a bunch of languages. Russian, Polish, German, Yiddish, and even more at times. He noticed a lot of tensions between these different peoples. Then he remembered a language spoken by a very small minority of the region, to which he had ties to, the Esperanto community. So he made it his task to standardize this easy language and the orthography of it. And well, the rest is familiar to the story you were taught. His dad burned his first attempt, which had more Latin inspiration, so Zamenhof did another attempt taking more influence from French. Lo and behold, modern Esperanto. At a congress or two, a conflict that splits the community or two, and now we got Esperanto in different standardizations being based on different dialect, different reconstructions, and just different bigger inspiration languages. So as we can see, Esperanto isn't a soulless conlang, but has a rich and ancient history dating back to the split of the Italic family from Proto-Indo-European. I mean, you wouldn't call standard Italian or standard German a conlang, so why Esperanto? It's basically just like Hebrew. Okay, also for anyone that didn't understand yet, this video is a thought experiment and a joke. Esperanto is a constructed language and all this was made up. A real video about its history is dropping. Not soon, but it will someday.